My name is Xinfeng Liang. I'm relatively new here. I came here like 2.5 years ago and gave a talk exactly like 2 years ago. So here there's some updates about my research. And the title of this talk is Exchange and Connections of Up and Deep Oceans. So I will try to give a few cases my lab has been doing kind of related to this very general topic. No, I can use this one. This is a very broad view of my research interest. First is the vertical exchange between the upper and deeper layer of the global ocean, which I will cover in this talk. The second one is the impact of mesoscale eddies on the deep ocean for many different processes over different time scales. And this will also be covered in this talk. I kind of define it the kind of a connection between the upper and deep ocean, particularly for the dynamical processes. And actually also work with Don on a few other projects. One very interesting one is we are evaluating the existing ocean data products by focusing on whether they can actually present the climate change signal, like the ocean heat content change accurately. So we also work on different things. But for today's talk, I'll mainly cover these two topics. The ocean, let's start with a very basic thing. I guess all of you know this very well, that the ocean is stratified. It's one of the most fundamental features of the ocean. The reason is we have a vertical structure of temperature because the ocean is warm mainly at surface. So you have a vertical profile of temperature. This is a very typical one. If you look carefully, there's usually there's a layer shows very sharp decrease of the temperature, which is the thermocline. So you can see this can be considered like an interface, separate different layers of the ocean. For the salinity, the same thing. Roughly, you look at the profiler you got from CTD, you can always see some vertical structures, and then usually you find a layer which shows very abrupt change of salinity. We know the density of the ocean, of the seawater, is mainly determined by temperature salinity. Sometimes if you more accurate, you need to take into account the pressure, but mainly it's determined by temperature salinity. Because of this, you always have an abrupt change in density for particular depth range, which is a pycnocline. So from here, we can we can roughly divide the ocean. This is a very simple diagram, but give you the sense that the ocean can be roughly considered to be like 2 or 3 layers, depending how do you consider this one. And you have a very well mixed upper ocean, or the mixed layer. You also have quite a stable deep layer, and there's a sharp boundary between them, which is a thermocline or pycnocline, depending on what kind of state variable you care about. Because of the existence of this thermocline or pycnocline, you have a very strong stratification here. Okay, which act as a barrier for the exchange between the up and deep ocean. So because of that, in addition to the temperature and salinity profile we already saw, you have a big difference between the upper ocean and deep ocean. For the other things, other material or tracers, you also see a very different patterns for the up and deep or abyssal oceans. This is the carbonate system kind of one measurement from the Aloha station. This is a kind of around 20-year average of the carbonate system measurement. You can see that here, the yellow is the temperature for that particular location, and the oxygen is the blue triangle. You can see they also show very different structure. Very big variation in the vertical direction. There's a difference between the relatively shallow part and the relatively deep part of the ocean. If you look at the salinity, again, you see the difference. The total alkalinity, you'll find the same thing, difference between up and deep ocean. And also for the other part, the pH, DIC, and the pH mean, you can also see those very big difference between the up and deep oceans. The reason for that, at least one reason behind this vertical structure is the stratification, is the layered structure of the ocean. Okay. We all know that the carbon cycle is a very important thing. If we care about climate change, we care about the carbon cycle. And the deep ocean is believed to be a huge carbon reservoir. So, and the exchange between, a lot of people care about the exchange between the atmosphere and ocean. But the exchange between atmosphere and ocean can be further divided, the exchange can be further divided into the exchange between atmosphere and up ocean, and the exchange between the up ocean and the deep ocean. If you read, in one of the very seminal paper by Ruvel, basically talk about the importance of the exchange between the up ocean and deep ocean. Carbon exchange is kind of a crucial process of determining the response of the whole climate to the increased CO2 in the atmosphere. So this is very, very important for carbon cycle as well as the global climate. If we go, if you look at other things like the nutrients, you also see a pretty big difference between the up ocean and the deep ocean. This is a kind of a major nutrients in the ocean, the nitrate, phosphate, and silicate acid you can look at. And for some trace metal, you also see a big difference between up and deep ocean structures. So again, to understand this structure or to predict the future change of those structures, we need to understand the vertical exchange between the up ocean and deep ocean. Okay, so let's first look at vertical exchanges. Because I'm a physical oceanographer, so when I want to address this question, I start from very basic physical variables. That's the heat, salt. Heat is temperature, and salt, and also the related physical processes. If we have a better understanding of these things, we may get some insight for kind of understand the distribution of the carbon system measurement, as well as the nutrients, trace metal, vertical structure. So that's kind of the potential insight we can get from those studies. The problem is, if we want to understand the vertical exchange, we need to know many dynamical processes. Like you want to know, in the ocean, there are many physical processes involved in the vertical exchange, like the vertical velocity, or upwelling, downwelling, people know that, and also the vertical mixing. But the problem is they are really difficult to measure, particularly for the vertical velocity that's associated with large-scale circulation or over long time scales. They're basically impossible to measure, okay? So we can't really, previously we just didn't have the resource to directly look at the vertical exchange of heat, salt, and other material or properties. In the past few decades, in the oceanography community, people start to develop this kind of products, which kind of use the numerical model to assimilate a huge amount of observation. Then within this particular product, you can have not only the traditional state variable like temperature, salinity, you can also have some dynamical variables, which usually you can't measure directly, like what I mentioned, the vertical velocity. With this kind of product, you at least can try to understand a bit about the vertical exchange of heat, salt, and other material tracers. For my study, I particularly use this one called ECCO. Okay, it's called the ocean state estimate, but the concept is basically the same as those ocean reanalysis products, even though there are some subtle differences between them. ECCO, here I give a very brief introduction about this particular product. ECCO stands for estimating the circulation, the climate of the ocean. Okay, the detail of this product is very, very complex. It involves a couple of group of people devoting on this for maybe 2 decades to really generate that. But the concept behind this product is pretty straightforward. For people, I guess most people here are quite familiar with this linear regression problem. So you have a model, that's y equals ax plus b. You have a model, and then you have some observation. That's the red spot here. So you use a model to fit the observation, then you could get estimate of a and b. Then you get all the numbers along this line, which is which follow the model. Okay, the ECCO, the ocean state estimation ECCO, conceptually is very much similar to this. Okay, it's just way more complicated. The model is not like y equals x plus b. It's a time-involving 3D ocean circulation model, okay, which actually includes some sub-models like sea ice model, which is itself is very complex. And the data is not like 4 points here. It's like you have 10 to the order of 9 points to do that, which require you to have a very sophisticated numerical engineering part in developing that thing. And the approach is not the linear regression we all familiar in the very basic data analysis course. It's use the adjoint process. This adjoint approach can make sure all the estimation you got will follow the MIT GCM. So everything there you got, the temperature, salinity, velocity, the wind force, the freshwater force, everything follow the models. So if you find anything interesting in the model, in the estimate, you can use the other dynamical processes or boundary conditions to explain the signal you found in this estimate. So which provide a very good tool to understand features. Here is just like the data is simulated. You can see it's very comprehensive. We simulate the Argo profilers, measurement of temperature, salinity, the VOS and the ghost ship measurement of hydrographic, like temperature, salinity from there, and also the satellite measurement from the altimeters, and also the GRIS data provide the bottom pressure constraint for the ECCO estimate. You use MIT GCM to synthesize all this data you generate this estimate. And then we go to look at some results. Very brief here. I mainly emphasize the. I won't talk about the detail, but just try to emphasize the question, importance of the question, the major result we got here. We first look at the vertical heat transport. So vertical heat transport, the reason we want to look at it is we know that the IPCC report has a very strong evidence to support global warming, which is the ocean heat content change. This is the plot the kind of used as a major evidence for global warming after 1970, okay? And this summarizes a bunch of studies focused on the upper ocean heat content change. The reason people only focus on the upper ocean heat content change is, which is the part of the ocean we actually have sufficient observation to make relatively confident result, okay? So you can see even though different people different groups may give you different detailed result, they all show a warming trend for the up 700 meters after 1970, okay? But the problem is we want to better understand this signal. We know the ocean, I mean, you have a warming up ocean, okay? This warming could be the result, I mean, there are at least two processes that can kind of contribute to this warming. One is the air sea heat fluxes, okay? That part, if you get more heat to the ocean, potentially this will warm up some part of the ocean, or the whole ocean. But if you only focus on the upper ocean, the heat exchange between the upper ocean and the deep ocean also matters for this particular region you observed. For this case, it's up 700 meters. So like I said, long time ago, we really don't have way to kind of look at this because the vertical heat transport, the vertical heat flux will involve a lot of dynamical processes, so we had no way to estimate that. But now with this kind of ECCO-like product, we can directly get some estimation of the ocean vertical heat flux. So we can look at where the vertical heat flux inside the ocean or between the upper ocean and deep ocean go. What's the direction of that? What's the magnitude of that? How the contribution of that comparing to the air sea heat fluxes, which will provide more accurate, potentially more accurate way to kind of interpret this observed upper ocean warming. On the other hand, if we get some information about this one, for the deep ocean, which we have really limited observation, mainly from those hydrographic measurement. I mean, even though some regional pattern like the Southern Ocean, people know there are quite significant warming patches, but for the whole global ocean, how the deep ocean, whether the whole deep ocean receive or release heat is not actually that well known. So there's a big uncertainty associated with the current estimate for the role of the deep ocean to the uptake of the heat. So if we get some information here, we may potentially get some insight about the change of the integral of the deep ocean. Here's the result we got from the ECCO version 4. What we found here is a very interesting result actually in the deep ocean. I mean below 1,000 meters. This shows the global mean vertical heat flux, which show where the heat go. The value below 1,000 meters is actually a positive value, which means the heat goes up in deep ocean. Okay, and if we focus on the boundary between up and deep ocean, for instance, if we arbitrarily choose like 1,000 meters, okay, we choose here, you find that there's a tiny portion of heat passing that depth going into the up ocean. Okay, which means at least in this particular product, the vertical heat exchange actually contribute to the warming of the up ocean. Okay, which is a kind of surprise. I mean, because it seems everybody think, okay, you have a global warming happen, so you have more heat due to the greenhouse, more heat stored in the climate system because of the greenhouse effect. Then the heat will go down to the ocean and go down. But the problem, there are a few problems here. One is the ocean. I mean that assumption, that conclusion based on the assumption that the ocean was in equilibrium before global warming happened. Okay, yes, if it was in equilibrium, you add heat to the system, the heat will go down if the ocean itself doesn't move that much. Okay, the second is that basically treat the ocean as a passive water, just like a bucket of water sitting there. But we know the ocean is not like that. The ocean has many processes going on over a wide spectrum of time scales. So it has many processes going on there for maybe from very, very quick, like wind wave to decadal centennial time scale variabilities. So those kind of things, if you have a measurement just over maybe 20 year, 10 year, maybe even 50 year time scale, you do the measurement, that long time variability may have some contribution to the signal you observed over a certain time period. So it's certainly possible. I mean, we didn't want to see this is definitely true because there are still many uncertainty involved in the estimate. But this just reminds us we can't simply treat the ocean as a passive heat reservoir. And also we need to remember the ocean has a lot of variabilities over a wide spectrum of time scales going on. So all those things we need to have a better understanding to really make some very strong statement about ocean heat warming at least. Okay, this is the part about the ocean heat fluxes. We also look at the recently my student Chao and I kind of look at the vertical salt transport, kind of a very similar idea to the heat exchange work. The reason is people observe that the up ocean showing in the past few decades shows a freshening trend. Okay, up ocean getting freshening. Again, we want to know how to accurately interpret those freshening trend. Is it purely due to the air-sea freshwater change? That's basically the evaporation precipitation. It's purely due to that, or the inside redistribution or inside the dynamics of ocean contribute to this a little bit. So we did very much a similar calculation at the heat flux, but for this particular work, we focus on the salt flux. So here this shows the vertical, this panel shows the global integral of the vertical salt flux. You can see that again, if you focus on particular layer, you have to, for this kind of study, you have to choose a layer you care about. For instance, if we focus on the upper 400 meters, okay? If we focus on upper 400 meter, here give us a upward salt flux, okay? That means the upper ocean freshening trend observed by many of the people, I mean also here in ECCO, is not purely due to the ASC freshwater flux. But that's certainly, that contribute to this. But not all of them is due to this, okay? Because the salt, because this vertical salt flux actually put more salt to the upper ocean. So you have if we do some budget analysis purely based on the salinity change to infer information about the change in precipitation and the fresh or precipitation evaporation, you may underestimate that change because actually here you add salt, continuously add salt to the upper ocean. Okay, so this is basically kind of provide some way to better interpret the observation people make from various sources. This shows a spatial pattern of the vertical salt transport or salt flux, which is actually very much similar to what we found from the vertical heat flux. The particular important feature I want to point out is this. You see, this is the vertical salt flux is at two depths. The one is at 500 meters, this one at 2,000 meters. The most interesting feature for me is the strongest vertical exchange of salt appear at high latitude regions, particularly the Southern Ocean. Okay, this is not only at 2,000 meters. If you go 4,000 meters, you can still see this very strong vertical exchange of salt and also heat. So all these kind of features. That means for the vertical exchange, the most important, particularly for the deep ocean, the most important region is the Southern Ocean. Okay, so we need to, if we really want to really care about the vertical exchange of heat, salt, even for those material or nutrients, carbon, all that kind of thing, we want to pay much more attention to the Southern Ocean. And why? I mean, then this basically just those vertical salt flux, the heat flux, lump together a lot of processes, a lot of the impact of a lot of physical processes. So we want to know what kind of physical processes are responsible for this, or are responsible for the total and are responsible for the spatial pattern of this. Then we want to look at some of the related physical processes.